What is some advice, if you could talk to your younger self that you've learned in this 25-year journey?
Consistently okay is better than sometimes excellent.
For sure.
And that is so critical.
And also, to be clear, I'm not saying stay stuck in a rut or stay doing something the way you always do it. Absolutely not. But I'm saying don't throw in the towel. Stay in the arena. Do whatever that next step may be, whatever that pivot has to be, whatever, just stay at it.
Honest Ecommerce is a weekly podcast where we interview direct-to-consumer brand founders and leaders to find out what it takes to start, grow, and scale an online business today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. Today, I'm bringing the show not one, but two amazing co-founders of Parker Thatch. I've got Irene and Matt joining me today. Welcome to the show.
Hey Chase. How you doing?
I'm excited to chat. I had so much fun in our pre-interview, and I'm really excited now to do the real one with you and bring all of this awesome learnings to them. So I guess first and foremost, for those that are unaware, what are the types of products you've been bringing to market over there at Parker Thatch for the last 25 years or so?
We've been on a long journey, right? And I think when I answer this question, the product that we bring to bear is always something called it's functional luxury is what we do. So when we first started our first business together, we did something in 2000, which is e-stationery. So we thought we wanted to bring luxury stationery to your email that early in that time frame, because everything out there was just like crazy, like weird cards and, things like that. But there wasn't anything very luxurious in that format. And that was how we started. And then just, through the time periods we've done, actual stationery, home goods. But where we landed on what we're doing currently is in the year 2009, where Matt came to me and said, hey, listen, I think I could print and monogram on actual cotton goods. What do you have? And so I was like, okay, finally, I get to make a bag. This would be amazing. And the idea was, okay, how can I make a functional bag that we could take to dinner and it would be luxurious, but it would have to be cotton. So we came up with this bag that was basically a tote bag, but with two leather handles.
And just context, a large part of Irene's professional background prior to us working together was in the fashion industry. Think like Calvin Klein, Donna Karan, et cetera.
And then Matt's background was heavily in design and also tech. So we kind of had like the convergence of skill sets to do what we needed to do, especially in the year 2000 where things were changing and moving so quickly. So anyhow, long story short, we made a bag and we've completely self-funded even to this day.
The Mimi bag.
Yes, that's our first bag. And so when we decided we wanted to make that bag, we had really no money to do any of this stuff. And we had no way that we could go to a factory and make their minimums. So Matt and I decided like, okay, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah, at that point, we were completely funding the business through cash flow. So we had to make money in order to grow and to do what we wanted to do operationally.
So we have the craziest story. And this is where I feel like everyone should just, with this story, think that, anything is possible. So I was like, okay, well, Matt, I have been going to this dry cleaner and this lady's really good at hemming my pants. Like because I've worked with the most amazing Italian tailors. Well,
and then you noticed on the wall behind her degree from fashion school.
Yeah. So she was helping her parents out. And I was like, I think she could make me a pattern. So Matt's like, okay. And this is like in our neighborhood. And we're in the, in the suburban, right?
San Francisco neighborhood.
So I'm like, I'm going to go ask her. So I go and ask her and I'm like, this is my idea. And I can't draw, Chase. Like I'm a product developer. Like I do product, but I'm not a designer like that can, train to draw. And so I went to her and I said, I have this idea. Do you think you could make me a pattern? And she's like, yeah, I think I could do it. So that's how we did it. So she made us a pattern and she made us a first kind of like shape and this is what it would look like. And then we're like, okay, let's go. And back then also you had to make huge minimums to buy huge rolls of canvas. So
for people who aren't, because I didn't have this as a background, people who aren't in the fashion industry, doing a pattern is like the blueprint. So you need this pattern, you need this technical specification in order to communicate with factories or to, take your vision of what you have in your head to make it reality. You have to have this pattern and it's technical. You can't I mean, I guess some can, but you just can't create a pattern. You need to have technical skills.
Yeah. And so anyway, so long story short, we're like, okay, we can't make the minimums to get canvas. So we decided, we're like, all right, let's go to Joann's Fabrics and there's 50% coupons. Let's do this. So the two of us would every day go and buy 2 giant rolls, as big as they can, right? They weren't.
But you're only allowed to use a coupon 1 per person per day, right?
Right. So we would stand in line and we would each break up and then we would get a roll of this fabric.
Pretending not to know each other.
Correct. Every day. They're like, I think we know you. Can you please not come back? And then so we then would take it to her. And that's the story of how we started our first bag. And then the other thing was we had no business in making handles, like going to a leather guy to make the handles for this bag. So we made the box. And so Matt's like, all right, let's go to a cowboy store and let's just buy leather and I'll cut strips of leather and see what we can do. So we just made this Mimi bag. I wish I had one here, 2 handles. And then we would just put these rivets in and put it, made them on our kitchen counter.
So this was a store geared toward, because, not far from here is Central Valley. This is a store geared for, farm. They're selling rough stuff for making saddles and et cetera. So that's where we were able to find.
So that's how we started our first bag. And then what happened was then we started putting stripes and all of our designs that we had made when we were doing stationery and home goods. We utilized those designs and put them on the bags and we would monogram them. And back then there was no such thing as like in order to get your product out there, it was always based, having to work with these great relationships with the magazines. And that's how you would market your product. And so, it was just all timing and it was fortuitous. It was right before gift guides. And that was our big product we wanted to send out to all the editors. And everyone was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so that was how we started. And we were in every gift guide with this bag. And so that holiday was quite crazy.
Yeah.
So we made every bag in our kitchen.
Yeah. Back then the gatekeepers were the traditional media. It was magazines. It was television.
Yeah.
And that's, or other websites, I guess. That was how you could market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we started our first bag and it was called a Mimi. And it's still to this day, it has transformed into, we made the Mimi, and then we moved into leathers, we made it the same bag into other materials. And to this day, the camouflage Mimi with the pink and red stripe is our best-selling bag.
That's amazing.
And this is in 2025. So it's quite remarkable.
Do you know what's going on with Klaviyo? When is the last time you explored what it can do? Klaviyo has been shipping tons of new AI, data, and automation features designed to help e-commerce teams move faster, personalize better, and automate more of the work that used to take entire teams. Most brands are only using a fraction of what is already inside their Klaviyo account. Klaviyo is not just email and SMS anymore. It is your customer data platform, your lifecycle marketing engine, your analytics layer, and now your AI-assisted execution layer all in one place. That means your customer data updates in real time. Your segments stay current automatically. Your flows and campaigns all run off the same source of truth. And now AI can help predict churn risk, forecast spend, recommend next best products, generate campaign content, and optimize send timing across channels. The big unlock is speed and efficiency. There are fewer tools to manage, less dependency on engineering, less time moving data between systems, and a lower total cost of ownership across your marketing stack. And brands are seeing real results from leaning further into Klaviyo. Dollar Shave Club has reported over 30% reduction in total CRM stack costs after consolidating onto Klaviyo. Brands like Third Love have seen a 15x ROI from SMS after consolidating channels. And companies like Corksicle have grown flow revenue over 90% after bringing email and SMS together inside Klaviyo. Across our customer base, almost every single brand we work with today is using Klaviyo. That is just where serious e-commerce customer data and lifecycle infrastructures are living these days. If you're already on Klaviyo, but you feel like you're not getting everything you can out of it, or you're just running multiple tools and want to simplify without losing power, I think this is worth your time. You should head on over to klaviyo.com/honest to learn more. That's KLAVIYO.com/honest to learn more about what Klaviyo can do for you today. So the first batch of this bag
Yeah.
was very scrappy.
Very.
You stood in line at Joann Fabrics buying as much as you could every day. And then you had it actually made by the same woman that made the pattern.
Yeah.
And then you self-stitched, for lack of a better term, on the leather straps that you bought at a different store, all locally. How quickly did the first 100 of bags move? And then how quickly were you still producing them yourself? You said you had a crazy holiday. Were you still producing them during that holiday?
Yeah.
It's funny because we were just looking at old videos from that time frame, just sort of, diary type videos. And it was 2 a.m., that holiday, that whole period, sort of from November through January, we were up every night, massive amounts of Starbucks lattes just to keep going. And like you said, so, working to have the basic core of the bag made with the help of the dry cleaner. And then here we were riveting and attaching the handles and then applying the custom designs.
Yeah. And we called it sticks and stones. Like, it really is sticks and stones. Like, for us, and I think that's the takeaway for people who want to start businesses. It's so important to have a very, really great training. And I think both Matt and I, before we met and before we started our businesses, we worked in corporations and we had amazing training and trained under the most amazing people. So we learned a lot of skill sets that allowed for us to think outside the box when the time came. So when the time came to make this bag, I knew how to make a bag. I knew the production process. I needed to find the people who could do it.
And I think I agree with that. An important distinction was we were in large corporations when we had that training.
Yeah.
So all of the risk is removed, right? Because you don't need to worry about all the other parts of running a business. You can just focus on your vertical and what you're doing. And then you have the luxury, kind of like in academia, to really push it to perfection, or at least see or be around a team where they have that luxury, that capital support to really push the boundaries of what's perfect. So when you then have to be scrappy, what's possible, but then comes the whole entrepreneurial approach to things, which is a completely different thing. But like Irene said, you have that foundation.
Yeah.
So in big industry with big money, what's possible. Yeah. Then you got to get scrappy.
Yeah, no, the scrappy part, I want to double down there, because traditionally, if you talked to, 4 out of 5 men or women in fashion school, they're like, I'm going to start a line and I'm going to make a product.
Right.
The process they're probably thinking through is, I'm going to make a pattern. So you guys did that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and then I'm going to go find a manufacturer. And you said, we're not doing that.
We can't do it. We don't have the money to do it.
Don't have the money, but also what we needed, there wasn't domestic. Because we're also, from the beginning, we were also very focused on making as much as possible in the US. Mm-hmm. And for what we wanted to do, just wasn't available at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it was insane. Like, I would, ask to make a belt. And they're like, well, we don't even have the belt machines to make belts here, like a very simple belt, because they've all been sent elsewhere. So for us to make things was really by hand. And it was really, you had to think outside the box to do these things.
And that's what I want to highlight is some of the best businesses are, one, it's always a good idea with a product that solves a need that the customer has, but it's also the way in which they are fulfilling the delivery or the manufacturing or whatever to produce that product. They think outside the box. Yeah. And I know that I really wish I remember what this, like the business truly was, but basically this guy it was kind of more in the construction business area of things. And he'd have to have 2 trucks go to each job site, because one truck was for one certain type of material. I want to say it was like the driveway. And then like the other truck was like the blacktopping material to like the finish and seal it. He was just like running his numbers. And he was just like, I literally just can't make any money here, even if I buy more of these things and I have to buy more people to drive them. And then all my money, all the profit's gone. And so one day he just cut a truck down the middle and just put one half of the truck is the first material, one half the truck's the second. No one's done this. Everyone thinks he's crazy. He welds it himself to do it. And that first truck is the most profitable job they've ever done. And then every other truck they own, they start to do it too. So it's just because people have been doing something one way forever, it's like, no, you can do it a different way, a cheaper way, a faster way, a more efficient way.
Or you have to get it done.
That's right.
But that's so interesting because we were looking at our old photos.
So we chose that route.
Yeah.
Right? Like the other route you were talking about, well, the mindset of someone in fashion goes, oh, next I go to a factory. It's like, that is a legitimate route. Typically you go out and you get an investor, so you have the money or take debt to fund that first run. And that just wasn't our approach. We wanted to have it always be profitable and just fund from cash flow and be scrappy to do it.
Well, and it's so funny that you were talking about this truck. So before we did the handbags, we, because when we did the e-station area, obviously no one understood what we were doing. It was the year 2000. They're like, you're going to charge us $15 a year to have access to these beautiful designs that you could send via email when everything was free at that time. So let's
just say we're both glass half full people generally. And for us, it's when other people might call it failure, we call it learning. So it's all positive. So like there's learnings and success.
Yeah.
So that was a learning phase.
Yeah. And so we were like, we have to survive. We didn't think about like, oh, let's just go back to our jobs because no one's paying for this. And then people kept asking like, we love these designs. Can we just buy it on paper stationery? And we're like, all right, let's do it. So we were actually printing all these goods out of our house for a long time. Like we've always done things in our house when we first started. So we got this huge order from Borders. I remember it was like the biggest order we ever had. And the guy was like, all right, you're going to have to pack these orders and they have to be on pallets. There's all these specifics, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we don't have.
Note also, this is another, ignorance is bliss. At this point, these are Irene's talking about are these packing guidelines. These large corporations, wholesale corporate, typically have these huge manuals of exactly how you must apply tape to the cartons that you send.
Right.
It has to have 6 pieces of tape done this way. And if you don't conform to their manual, then you get chargebacks, which eat into, what you're making on the deals. You just don't know these things when you start out and you overcome them, right? But it's like if you knew all these things before you start, I think you might think different.
Yeah. So it's like that guy. So he's like, okay, they're like, well, we need pallets. And we're like, where the heck do we get pallets? We don't have pallets. What are we talking about?
It's like, do you have a forklift?
We don't even have a warehouse. They're thinking they're going to come pick up these giant boxes in a warehouse. So Matt and I drove down to the docks and we're like buying pallets off of the guys from the docks.
Yeah, we drove down to Oakland to get the used pallet guy to buy pallets to conform to their spec. We're out of our duplex in suburban San Francisco.
And they're like, we have to come pick, do you guys have like a forklift or whatever? We're like, we have none of that. So then we're like, how are they going to pick this stuff up? So basically we like took 2 parking spots and put 2 parking spots full of pallets and these cards. And then we had this guy, gave him the address. We didn't even tell him like, you're not going to a warehouse. The guy shows up and he's like, what the hell is going on? Like he's thinking he's going to a warehouse to pick up these pallets. So, but it worked. He's like, all right, fine. That's cool. You got pallets. You're in a parking lot, but it worked. And we got the whole order out.
So it's like your guy with the truck, it's like, when you're confronted with these manuals or the regular way of doing it, everyone does it this way to your point. It's like, maybe we can try it this way. And have that attitude at every juncture. And then that's how you can move forward.
And that's how you could start what you're doing. Then you keep moving and obviously you refine it. And then now, like no one's picking up pallets at our house, but that's how you start. Don't get bogged down by like what you're saying where I have to now go find a factory. There's other ways you could do things.
But also don't assume you need to pay, lease or buy a huge warehouse either when you're next phase.
Yeah.
Like maybe you use a storage unit and they have forklifts available and you don't need to lease a forklift or just have that attitude at whatever level of growth you're at. I think that's the mindset.
Yeah.
Hey, store owners. Do you know how profitable your last big decision was on your Shopify store? Most testing tools make it easy to measure design changes, small tweaks, headlines, layouts, button colors. But what about the decisions that really move the business? Pricing changes, shipping rates, discount strategy, even new apps and tools. Those are usually left to gut feel. Intelligems brings CRO-level clarity to decisions that live beyond the page. Brands like Ridge, Jones Road, and True Classics are using Intelligems to test pricing, offers, shipping, and more, and see exactly how each choice impacts profit. Momofuku used Intelligems to test multiple promotional offers ahead of Black Friday and identify the version that ultimately increased profit by about 28%. Mott & Bow used Intelligems to run structured pricing and offer tests that helped drive roughly a 30% increase in incremental profit. Dossier used Intelligems to run site-wide testing that resulted in about a 7.4% increase in profit per visitor across their store. They have a bunch more case studies on their website. I'm a big fan of Intelligems. We use Intelligems to test major site changes, new theme launches, and throughout ongoing CRO work. So when we are making decisions around design, pricing, offers, etc., we can be confident that those changes are actually driving more profit for our clients. So before you start changing pricing, promos, and major site experiences across your store all willy-nilly, you should probably test it first. If you're ready to decide confidently and grow profitably, head on over to Intelligems.io. That's Intelligems.io and use code HONEST for 10% off your first 3 months. That's Intelligems.io. Use code HONEST. I think that is maybe the learnings of a seasoned entrepreneur, because like when it's starting to work, you want everything new and big and shiny.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's just straight up taking the profit out of your pocket.
Yeah.
That could be used to either fuel that lifestyle that you are dreaming about building for yourself, or the growth of the next stage of your business. That next purchase order, maybe you finally now have to use a factory partner to do so.
Yeah.
That's right.
So pivoting back to your story, how long were you doing it yourself? When did you finally decide, all right, we are going to find a manufacturer local to help us overcome some of the challenges of we have a successful product and we just can't keep up?
Yeah.
As soon as possible, but it's also one major chapter for us, since we were customizing these designs, and people would write in, they're like, all right, we love this design and we want a special inscription to our recipient on the inside of the bag, or we want our name and our monogram on the outside. That made it be that we had to keep that part, the finishing part of it, in-house for a long time. But early on, we found we were able to find partners to manufacture, they call it grayish goods. So think like the blank bag before you apply the design to it.
Yeah. So we got very clever with how we were not, because of my training, the holy grail is to have grayish goods that you could use forever. And you use it as you go, and you could print on it and change the face of those grayish goods, but not have to buy like 5,000 colors or something. So I used all that to figure out how.
Because the alternative is buying into every single style of finished good that you're selling. And then you run into markdowns. You run into, inevitably not all of them sell, right? So with the grayish goods, you have the fundamental ingredient that you can then create just in time or smaller amounts of inventory of the finished good.
Can you give me an example that's more general for the fashion industry of like what a grayish good is?
A grayish good would be this canvas. So if I owned like rolls of this natural canvas, I could actually then, if I needed to, dye this canvas in different colors as I needed it. But then I wouldn't have to buy black. I mean, obviously you could, but as a small company, that's a smarter way to go. So for us, we were printing designs on the natural canvas. So what I needed to invest in was the natural canvas. And then I used it as I went by the designs that I would put on it. So it's like a blank t-shirt basically these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a buddy of ours just finalized the blank for their brand. They're a pretty big brand. I'm not going to talk about them here. You can probably find it on LinkedIn. But one of his big initiatives coming in, helping these guys level up, like they sell a bunch, but they never worked with someone that's been in the industry before. And they literally, they finalized their specific cut blank for every shirt they're ever going to make again is going to be this style, weight, etc. And also then they can dye it from there for the various finishes. But owning that in bulk, because a lot of people think when they look at this apparel in general, it's just like, oh, they just have all these sizes of all these things forever, which some of it's true, but owning all that in like finished good and unfinished good is just money wasting away on a warehouse shelf that could be doing anything else.
That's right.
Exactly.
So figuring this part of it out is a major unlock or efficiency if people can do it. And that's how it applies in apparel and fashion, but the same approach applies, I think, in pretty much any business.
Yeah. But, for us, this bag was our start, but it was always, the product is always grounded in like, how do we make a product that's functional yet luxurious? Mm-hmm. And so that's how that's how we always thought with any product that we would make. But our handbags and the ethos of what we do is truly that, even to this day.
I have been in business for nearly 20 years, and very few companies I have hired in that time have performed as well as Electric Eye. They have knowledgeable staff, and our project was delivered on time and on budget. Electric Eye has exceeded my expectations, and I look forward to working with them again. That is a direct quote from one of our clients at Electric Eye. Electric Eye is a Shopify Plus partner that has helped over 100 brands migrate, redesign, and optimize their stores since 2016. If you'd like to increase your conversion rate, average order value, and revenue per session, we are the true Shopify experts you've been looking for. Right now, we're offering a free diagnostic to qualified brands that reach out and mention the podcast. Visit electriceye.io today to schedule a call and send us a message. Find out why we have over 50 5-star reviews in the Shopify partner directory. Again, that's electriceye.io, electriceye.io. Now, there was kind of a challenge I set forth to both of you after our first conversation.
Yeah.
Which was, what is some advice, if you could talk to your younger self that you've learned in this 25-year journey?
Okay. For me, it all comes down to one thing. And I keep going back to this, and it's been 25 plus years pretty much at this point, which is you just got to keep going. Everything else comes from that. If you stop, it's over. And I don't want to elaborate. I just need to let that sit for a second, because that, for me, that is like when you're sitting at the 3 a.m. and you're on a heat press and you're whatever that equivalent is for your business, it's like, that's what you can fall back on. When you're exhausted, you're like, I don't want to do that. It was just easier being in a cubicle or being a corporate, or everyone else took care of all the rest of these parts of business. That's something to keep in mind. You got to just put one foot in front of the other. Inevitably, whatever situation you find yourself in, hours later, days later, maybe it's going to change. So what you have to do is still be there and be present when it does change, so that you can take advantage of that opportunity. It's just don't give up. Keep going.
And we have one motto, and I always end everything I do with this one word. Very simple. Onward. So for those days, and there are horrible days where you're just like, this is going to implode. What are we going to do? And it's hard because the two of us, we're married, we have kids. Everything we do is on the line. It's like a stress every day, so we really have to believe in what we're doing. And I really do believe it's onward. You have to keep moving, and consistency. You have to come back every day. It's not like, okay, this is great. I wanted to do this, 2 days, and then you put it off for 3 days. I think consistently okay is better than sometimes excellent.
For sure.
And that is so critical.
And also, to be clear, I'm not saying stay stuck in a rut or stay doing something the way you always do it. Absolutely not. But I'm saying don't throw in the towel. Stay in the arena. Do whatever that next step may be, whatever that pivot has to be, whatever, just stay at it. Don't sit down. Don't give up.
It's funny. We're obviously on like complete opposite sides of the coin here. We run an agency and we're going on a decade in. And yeah. I was talking about it the other day with somebody, and I was just like, honestly, I think a lot of like our successes are just showing up every day. And the networking isn't like a thing that happens overnight. It's a thing that happens like sustainably. So the relationships that we've built over the last decade, the clients we've worked with, the people that worked at those small brands now are at bigger brands, and they're calling us in to work for these flagship names that we would have never approached originally. So it's just that showing up. Amazing. And Kaizen is this concept of like 1% better every day. Like we kind of believe about that as well at the agency. And I think all of that's true. And I think that obviously in a lot of like successful conversations, there is that like confirmation bias of where they are around, therefore they are successful. And it's like, yeah, but it also go hand in hand. It's kind of like, if you just stick it out, stuff will start to, you make all of the mistakes, so then only the good things are left for you to do.
Exactly. And right. I also believe that, it gets harder and harder. It's like a video game. Every level gets harder and harder. So you really, really have to stay consistent, stay calm, and not freak out when you're like, okay, this is what was going on here. There's so many things coming at me.
Hey, everybody, just a quick reminder. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't. We're releasing interviews like this every week, so don't miss out. Now back to the interview. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to kind of follow. It's like, it might feel stressful. Nobody's under the knife. Nobody's going to die. We are not doctors. We're not on a war zone.
Right.
The worst thing that is going to happen is you're going to send an apology email or something. You lose a few dollars. You learned a lesson that maybe it was expensive.
Exactly.
It's not really that big of a deal.
Exactly. And I think that we get so hyper focused on the issues, and that's when you can't think clearly. And I really, just with time and what we're doing now, that's how I see things. Like, yes, if you didn't have these challenges, you're not going to get better. You got to step into the challenge. That's how you get better. Do you become a faster runner? If you don't do, a faster time and you try to challenge yourself at those times, you'll just stay at that minute mile, like whatever minutes you're on. So you need to push your body a little harder. And I really do believe that you got to push through it and you will become stronger. And then the next level, it's always the next level, but you got to keep moving forward.
And I'm not saying stay stuck in a futile or toxic situation. I'm absolutely not. I'm saying if you find yourself in that, then your challenge is, how do I reconfigure, how do I reinvent the situation, right? And to your point about the confirmation bias of the people who have survived, right? And I've been very mindful of that since the beginning. I mean, we all know the odds of a business. It's just crazy, those odds. Like, how many are still in after first year, after 5 year, after 10? It's just nuts, right? But what is, I think, universally true is for the ones that are successful, they kept showing up.
Yep.
Right.
When they make a mistake, they learn from it and they pivot. And that's how you keep going.
And don't get stuck in, this is my vision of how it's going to be. My gosh, if we were stuck in that, we wouldn't have got anywhere.
Yeah. And I also feel like with, what we're doing, when we first started with the Mimi bag, we started automating a lot of the things, like the blank, the bags would come in now fully made instead of us trying to put the handles on and all that stuff. Much better configuration. Everything got better. But the one thing that didn't get better was Matt and team still had to customize each bag. And the way it was going, we just
think of the knock-on effects, right? And you do that, then you can't leverage 3PL, right? You can't scale because everything has to come. That's another huge realization too, is this concept of bottlenecks. I forget what that book is, but there's that one book. We read it in business school, but there is always a bottleneck. You fix a bottleneck, then there's another bottleneck, right? Yeah. So this became our serious bottleneck. We realized all these efficiencies like Irene's saying, all other aspects of it, but we couldn't crack the back on that one. And then we were on that for 10 years plus. Yeah. Right.
And also, like you said, when you do your business and you're in it long enough, people come, you meet extraordinary people. And this is one of the greatest gifts we meet we have this extraordinary community of our Parker Thatch community. And all these women are extraordinary. They're mostly women, some men.
But Chase mentioned it earlier, and this is one of the most profound bits of wisdom that you came to this partnership with, I think, more so than I did, which is because coming from the fashion world that you came from, the way you explained it, is a pretty insular, small little world. So Irene would always say, look, no matter what the situation is with the people you're dealing with, keep in mind that you're going to run into that person a few years later, right? And I think you sort of talked about that, Chase, but it's like, that is an important, very important thing in any business, but I think really in entrepreneurs, and where it's like, things aren't always positive. You've got to keep that in perspective. And that's happened true. That's again and again and again, where even people from 2002, they pop up in 2018 and you're like, what? And to your point, like where they've gone on to bigger and better. And now you're seeing opportunities through them that you never could have even anticipated. We've run into that again and again. So I totally agree with you.
But the story is when we were doing the customized bags, Matt and I had the great fortune of just meeting Kate Spade. And she became one of my best friends. And
she was a stealth customer.
Yes, a stealth customer. And then we became friends. And our children, we would spend summers together. And, but she had great wisdom. And I remember, Matt, she would watch us struggle and she's like, you guys are so talented. But I'm going to tell you something. When I first started doing my bag, we did it in nylon, and it was black nylon. And that's all I was like, that's what we're doing. And then when they needed to grow and scale, they're like, Katie, we really need you to maybe explore other materials. So she's like, all right, fine, begrudgingly.
And the reason she had done that sandbag and that nylon is they needed to be scrappy at the beginning.
Yeah.
They were very similar.
We had the same story when we met.
She was talking about going to Brooklyn and bringing back materials in a trash bag, riding on the subway. Like they were super scrappy.
They had all their, and she couldn't even make the minimums on nylon. So she had to do her first bags out of, I don't even know, like jute or something. It was, right? So she was just an extraordinary human and one of our best friends. And so she said, Irene, I'm really going to tell you this. I know you don't want to do it, but please try to take this bag and put it in another material like leather. When we moved our bags from nylon to black leather, it 10x'd our business. And I was like, all right, fine. And so she really was one of those people who like kind of, because everything was on the line for us. So we were very comfortable just doing canvas and what we were doing. That was safe, like we weren't going to take on huge, inventory in that way. She's like, just try it. And I think that's where we kind of took the leap of faith and started doing, at first it was different color canvas. Then we moved into suede, but it was always the same body. And that was what they did too. That little square black bag went from nylon into leathers, but it was always the same shape. And that was their best selling bag. And we kind of like, okay, we'll try it. And that's where our business started to really change.
And Katie and her husband, Andy, they had done this from the beginning as a team and they had different strengths. Andy's focused on, amazing marketing and branding, and Katie obviously in product and everything else. And another huge help beyond this leather story was our name.
Yeah.
So for the first 12 years or so of our business, we had a name. We were called Iomoi, spelled I-O-M-O-I.
Yeah.
And we loved that name. And one day they came to us.
It was Andy. Andy's like, I love you guys so much and I want to share your product with my friends. But God damn it, I cannot remember how to spell your name or even how to say it. This is ridiculous. And he's like, and you do all your business online. So you need to have people who could spell your name. So Iomoi was very difficult for people because it's sort of French and they're like, we're in America. Like, this is kind of weird. So one summer we were hanging out in Napa and they're like, we need to help you change your name. So
I'll just say, like, we were enamored of it for all these reasons. Like, oh, it's a palindrome. It's the same forward as it is backwards. Like from a
and it looked great
from
as
a design perspective. It's balanced. It's amazing. Like we were really loving this name and invested in it. And to change a name, especially when you're 10, 12 years into business, is a huge problem.
Yeah.
But this was another thing where it's like, you know what, you have to do these things.
And we would just spend all summer like coming up with names. And then finally, I think it was Katie or Andy, I can't remember. They're like, well, what about your kids' names?
They suggested you should do the Grenbys.
Oh, that's
remember?
right.
And then I was like, oh, we should do the kids' names.
And I was like, okay, no one can spell the Grenbys. Okay. So we're going to have the same problem. So our name, so then it became our kids' names. Parker's our daughter and Thatcher's our son. And so it's Parker Thatch. And then it was so much easier on so many levels, like just everything just started to click. So they played a very large role in moving our business forward and giving us the confidence to move our business forward.
So back to your original question, probably talking to myself, 20 plus years on, nothing is sacred.
Yeah.
Right. Like we were really psyched about this name or really invested in it for a long time. And it's like, no, you've got to be open to this objective outside wisdom. And even though it's a tough pill to swallow, sometimes when it's the right thing to do, you got to do it.
And I have one more advice where when we started our e-stationery, I think the other thing is we always think bigger than what you believe. Because when we first started our e-stationery, we were thinking just like, I need to get $15 a year from our customers. And then that was the business model. But if we did step back and thought bigger picture, actually, if we made it free and the information and the data we were receiving probably would be that would have been worth more. But we didn't see it that way because we were seeing it smaller. So my thing is think bigger. We always think that we could only do 40, 50% of what we could actually do. And when you engage in something now, like think bigger. Like what I'm doing now, actually, how can I make this even bigger than what I'm thinking? And it's possible. I really do believe it.
That's amazing. And we've talked obviously at length about all the innovations and just the fun things and the story of your bags. If I'm listening to this and I, am interested in getting a bag for myself or maybe picking one up for my partner for the holidays, where should I go? What should I do?
Thank you so much. Solely on our website. So it's parkerthatch.com.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much
for having us.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Chase.